On 30th March 2026, India's Union Home Minister Amit Shah announced on the floor of the parliament
बस्तर से नक्सलवाद लगभग समाप्त हो चुका
that the Naxal insurgency was largely over. However, the decimation of India's most ideologically radical insurgency, which once consumed nearly one-third of India, cannot be studied in isolation. Its causes, effects, and the subsequent action against it were largely derived from the intent and determination of those who were in power in New Delhi. To understand how we won, we need to understand why we were losing in the first place. In fighting any insurgency, there is one golden rule. You cannot defeat an enemy if you are confused about who they are. Look at this chart. Focus on the red line. We built a metric called the tonality score. Think of it as the government mood meter. If the score is negative, the government is soft, apologetic, and wants to negotiate with the Naxals. This placed the state completely on the back foot. If the score is positive, the government is in a no-nonsense, zero-tolerance attack mode. This meant that the state was now playing on the front foot. Look at the years between 2004 and 2013. The red line is buried in the negative. Why? Because Delhi's leadership was paralyzed. They were calling armed Naxals our misguided children. Some activists romanticize them as Gandhians with guns. But what happens in the real world when the government hesitates? Look at the pink bars on your screen. Those pink bars are dead civilians. When the state acted weakly, civilian casualties exploded. Naxalism has consumed over 20,000 innocent lives. A horrifying 720 innocent people were killed in 2010 alone. The Naxals ran kangaroo courts. They slaughtered tribal villagers by branding them as police informers. The harsh reality? The government's moral confusion was paid for in tribal blood. But watch what happens when the math flips.
Story we are breaking at this top Naxal commander Madhvi Hidma has been killed.
Senior Maoist commander Ganesh Uike has been killed. 14 Naxals have been killed in two separate encounters in Chhattisgarh.
In 2014, the red line crossed into the positive. The old theory of "let's talk to the poor guys" was discarded for plain pragmatism. The new rule was simple. You cannot build schools if Naxals keep blowing them up. Security first. So Delhi changed its tone. But how do you actually translate a mood in Delhi into hunting down Naxals in a jungle the size of a small country? You build capacity in the players. You substitute the weak links with stronger hands and replace generalists with specialized expertise. For years, the police tried to fight a jungle war using city cops and highway troops. It failed. The Naxals knew every cave, every trail, every local dialect. So the state built the District Reserve Guard, DRG, and raised the specialized Bastaria Battalion of the CAPF. Who are they? Local tribal youth and surrendered Naxals. In counter-insurgency, terrain is the ultimate force multiplier. For decades, the dense jungle was the Maoists' greatest shield. The DRG and Bastaria Battalion effectively illuminated this entire operational grid. The state took raw native human intelligence operatives who knew every hidden trail and local dialect and fused it with 21st century technology. Drones mapped the canopy. Thermal imaging saw through the dark. Signals intelligence tracked their phones. The Naxals couldn't hide from the sky and they couldn't hide from the locals anymore. And the state used this new power to choke the absolute lifeline of the insurgency. The MMC zone, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh zone. Why was the MMC so crucial? It was the ultimate cross-border sanctuary, a massive dense forest tri-junction. For decades, Naxals exploited what we call jurisdictional confusion. If Chhattisgarh cops chased them, they simply stepped across the border into Maharashtra or MP, knowing the local police couldn't easily follow. It was an uninterrupted and invisible highway for cadres, cash and weapons. So how did the state finally crush it? Political alignment. With the center and these key states operating under a unified political umbrella, the red tape vanished. Lack of synergy became a thing of the past. Seamless central funding, joint task operations, and unified intelligence networks effectively erased the state borders for the security forces. The government greenlit heavily armed forward operating bases, FOBs, right on these porous borders, deep inside the canopy. They chased the Naxals and occupied their escape routes. The MMC tri-junction went from being a strategic safe haven to a giant, inescapable tactical trap. In August 2024, Union Home Minister Amit Shah set a hard deadline: end this by March 2026. To meet that deadline, the security forces went beyond chasing just the foot soldiers. They went straight for the head of the snake. They started hunting the myths. Marvi Hidma, the mastermind behind the deadliest attacks on our Jawans, eliminated. Nambala Keshav Rao, the General Secretary, eliminated. Milind Teldumbade, the top-tier non-tribal Central Committee member who orchestrated operations from the top, eliminated. Papa Rao, the most elusive commander, surrendered in March 2026. Look at this list. The entire brain trust of the Maoist army was wiped out or forced to surrender in just 24 months. But bullets are expensive. Who was funding them? Who was fighting their cases in the courts? Their ideological counterparts with links and connections. While the CAPF fought in the jungles, the government used laws like UAPA and FCRA to freeze the bank accounts and foreign funding of NGOs and institutions, laundering money for the Naxals in the cities. The insurgency was suffocated from both ends. No leaders in the jungle, no lawyers in the city. When you kill the leadership and freeze the money, what happens to the foot soldiers? Pause the video for a second and just look at this chart. A war is won when the enemy stops believing in the fight. In 2016, surrenders spiked to over 1,400. In 2025, over 2,300 gave up. When over 11,000 armed combatants walk out of a forest and hand over their AK-47s, they aren't retreating. They are realizing that their revolution is a scam. Why did they surrender? Because the state gave them a binary choice: surrender or die. If they surrendered, the government accommodated them under its generous rehabilitation policy. Surrendered Naxals were integrated in the mainstream and given vocational training to earn a livelihood. What would you choose? A guaranteed bullet or a guaranteed job? They chose the job. There is a myth sold by activists that hard policing hurts innocent people. The data destroys that myth. Look at the graph. When state action goes up, civilian deaths go down. We went from 720 dead civilians in 2010 to just 5 in 2026. The declaration of a Naxal-free India proves one ultimate truth. A country cannot defeat Naxalism by being confused or apologetic. By unifying its voice, weaponizing local intelligence, and relentlessly hunting the top bosses, the Indian Republic destroyed the largest internal security threat in its history. The monopoly on violence has been restored. The Red Corridor is officially closed. And as Union Home Minister Amit Shah promised, the heartland has finally been reclaimed. The Indian flag flies uncontested over the entirety of India.